Hey everyone, this is Thyworm with another revisited build guide, this time the beginner-friendly Lightning Blast Mage. If you're enjoying last Epoch content, consider subscribing. I'm assuming that you watched the original build guide. You should, if you haven't. If you go into this update without context, it may be hard to follow. Just a friendly heads up. If you followed the previous build guide and logged into patch 0.7.8, you will now face some challenges. Primarily, ward was just completely nerfed. There are plenty of ways to gain ward still, however, to keep the velocity of the build intact, we're not really making much use of those options. You will have some ward, but that's really about it. Other defensive mechanisms have making their way into the build and we will get into that. A challenge we used to have and don't have anymore are crashes. Lightning Blast crashed the clients previously, but that has been fixed. That is excellent news. So let's start with the build philosophy. Because of the overhaul in patch 0.7.8, we now need significant changes to this build to keep it viable. Skills have changed, passives have changed, gear has changed, but the philosophy of the build remains. It is all about long distance lightning damage and having a build that is easy to level and play with. Actually, we went pretty much full bananas on the DPS because it provides a lot of advantages. Ward got hit hard with the nerf hammer. We invest therefore a lot less in ward and have implemented other defensive mechanics. Freezing enemies, distracting enemies, shocking enemies and stunning enemies are built in the kit. We swapped some skills as well, and overall I would say the build is a lot more streamlined than before, with skills that have specific purposes, some good reactive defensive skills and overall good damage and survivability. The wishlist, a new section in the guide, was requested via my stream. You can find me on twitch.tv/Thyworm every Monday, Thursday and Saturday 8 PM Central European time. So what do you really need for this build to work? Mainly lightning or elemental damage, crit chance, crit multiplier, cast speed and dodge rating. Intelligence is always good too, but it's less good than before because of the ward nerfs. We do want to dish out a good chunk of damage. It's fun and it's good to kill enemies before they reach you. It's a very viable defensive strategy. Dodge rating helps a lot and we want to be glancing below capped, of course. With this in mind, let's take a look at the passives. When leveling, don't spend more than 20 points in the base tree. I'm level 85 however, so I put some extra points in here. You can take these temporarily until you reach the end of time where you get your mastery. Then make sure to respec and invest in the sorcerer tree. We take 8 out of 8 Arcanist for the intelligence, take 1 point in Elementalist and take 1 out of 10 reactive ward. Both aren't good nodes, but you need to spend your stuff somewhere to get to 10 points. Take 5 out of 5 Mage Flurry because cast speed is really good. I still take 5 out of 5 Warden because it's good value for your investments and we still generate ward. When you have more points to spend, around level 70, you could return to the base tree and take 5 out of 5 Sun and Storms, increasing lightning damage and providing 35 ward on using a lightning and fire skill. It has a 10-second cooldown which we reduced by taking 3 out of 3 Silver Rune, so now it only has a 4-second cooldown and the ward gained is increased by 60%. This is a very steady source of ward. I took 1 point in Arcane Current for the memes. Then the Sorcerer tree. Take 8 out of 8 Calculated Destruction because we want crit chance. 5 out of 5 Arcane Momentum is insane, another 25% cast speed. 10 out of 10 Wisdom gives intelligence and mana. The latter isn't important when leveling, but around level 80 you want to aim for 300 plus mana to get synergy with gears and idols and increase bonuses those idols give. 30 mana helps. We are a lightning mage, so 8 out of 8 Serenomancer makes a lot of sense. Shocking enemies reduces their stun resistance and elemental resistance, which is nice. Crackling Precision, 8 out of 8 is even more crit chance. Arcane Obliteration increases the damage you do when you do a critical strike, which is very often by now. 50% increased crit multiplier is a lot. Take 10 out of 10 Arcane Insight for the intelligence and a constant buff called Insight. It grants another 20% elemental damage and ward retention for 4 seconds on hit. This is always active. Spellsinger is a mandatory node in any mage build. 5 adaptive spell damage and 15% cast speed is way too good to pass up on. 5 out of 5 Archmage grants another 5 adaptive spell damage, and finally take 4 out of 4 Recollection for 20% cooldown recovery speed. This helps a lot with our abilities like Teleport, Flame Ward and Snap Freeze, which all have pretty long cooldowns. You can see that I have currently 1 point in Mana Shell, that is just to reach 300 plus mana. mana. I currently have 301 mana, thanks to this node. As soon as I find gear with more mana on it, or I gain like 10 more levels, I will lose this node. It is a nice node though if you are short on mana. Skills are up next. Lightning Blast remained the same, so for details check the original video. We still have multi-target change and of course the increased range. We strike multiple times, we do increased hit damage, and very importantly the lightning Aegis. 10% on cast means it's always active because we cast so often. 50% increased lightning damage and 25% less damage taken is very good. It also scales very well with some of our idols, which increase casting speed when lightning Aegis is active. All our other skills changed or were modified. Let's start with the crowd control skills, which is Black Hole and Snap Freeze. Black Hole is not here for damage, but for controlling the monsters. Take the extra duration first with 3 out of 3 stability and after that 3 out of 3 endless maw for a total of 120% increased duration. We then increase the pool strength by 75%, taking 5 out of 5 intensity and moving on to massive, increasing the chance of the black hole. Our final points are into 1 out of 5 time dilation for blind chance, but mostly to get to the cascade fracture, giving black hole a chance to cast itself again. That is a very long CC timer. Our other CC spell is Snap Freeze, which instantly freezes enemies. You start this with 4 out of 4 Snow Flurry for mana efficiency and recovery speed, so you can cast it more often. 2 out of 3 Focused Frost reduces the mana cost by 20%, and the node afterwards, 7 out of 7 Wandering Fog, increases the spell size a lot. You freeze a lot of enemies this way. Finally, take 7 out of 8 Adept for that sweet cast speed. The whole point of this spell is to cast it quickly when things get tricky and then use the following spell, Teleport. Teleport underwent a few changes as well. It is now more of a support spell. I would start with 4 out of 5 Plasma Protection for some protections and then get the clones. Unexpected Copy, a clone on arrival, and Decoy Position, another clone at departure. These clones are super useful in distracting enemies as they taunt them. Then add some knockback to this skill, using Unstable Arrival and 3 out of 3 Intense Arrival. This knockback is super useful in case you accidentally teleport into a group of enemies in the arena or something. At the very least, they're not instantly one-shotting you now. Then you take some ward, take 5 out of 5 Ether Barrier and then 3 out of 3 Out of Body, converting health to ward by a factor 2. It's a really good node. Our final skill is still Flame Ward, because even though it was heavily nerfed, it still serves its purpose. It should now be used reactively whenever you expect incoming damage. We also built in another neat trick though. I just went fully ward because we don't need the damage. Take 4 out of 5 Stalwart Defense for 160 ward, 4 out of 4 Concentrated Shielding is great, another 200 ward, Fortification, another 150 ward, 3 out of 3 Fuel the Flames, more ward, and Dual Aegis provide another charge, which is super useful. You can now spam the button twice for a burst of around 2k ward. That is the ward. Now we want some more utility out of this. Take 4 out of 5 Barrier for flat damage reduction, 32%. That is significant. We take Warden Pulse as well, knocking enemies back when using Flame Ward, super useful in tricky spots. And finally, we take 1 out of 3 Desperate Defense to get to Astonish. Flame Ward is cast when you are stunned, and that is pretty amazing. Enemies that stun you tend to be the harder hitting enemies, and that is exactly when you need that little extra effective life. It has saved my life multiple times, this node. Also, the damage reduction procs, so it works really well together. Time to look at the gear. Previously, the focus was on getting ward, and that has changed. The focus is now on doing damage. Lots of damage and shock. The gear has become a little less beginner friendly, but any unique can be replaced by a rare crafted item with just intelligence on it or any stat on the wish list. These are pretty common uniques apart from the helmet. I use a sorcery staff with 119 adaptive spell damage that turns into 119 added lightning damage to spells, and then on top of that all the multipliers from increased damage are doing their job. The damage output is pretty massive, which is nice. It feels good, and killing enemies fast is a very viable defensive mechanism. I put an emphasis on a bit of dodge. We are of course cleansing blow capped. I have 0 crit avoidance. The barbed helm provides a nice amount of ward and some great stats like intelligence and dexterity, which gives dodge. The invoker's touch is more added lightning damage and shock effect. The Stormtide boots make you go really fast, have tons of shock effect, and the drawback is that you are shocked as well, lowering your own elemental protections. I have close to 0 fire resistance with this build, but I still survive fire just fine because of all the damage reductions. The only thing that kills you is a siege golem, but they kill every character, even if you have 75 fire resistance, just as easily, so it doesn't matter. I will create a Tunklabs build link and post it in the description so you can take a look at all the gear. Idols, the increased cast speed while you have lightning aegis is very strong if you find it. The other stuff is just crit chance, some ward generation and increased lightning damage, which doubles once you reach more than 300 mana. I'm getting 88% increased lightning damage from this Ornate class idol. That's some nice synergy. For leveling, please check the original video. Finally, the playstyle during endgame. The idea of this build is that you play at a safe distance because Lightning Blast basically crosses the entire screen. Once enemies are on their way to you and they are bigger, more difficult enemies, drop a black hole and keep shooting. If they are even closer, use Snap Freeze. Make sure to get out of harm's way using Teleport, leaving behind taunting clones, and then when things get rough, spam the Flame Ward. Once you mastered the playstyle, this build can get you very far with not much gear investment. Once again, my gear is nothing special. It's super easy to level, it is a great farming character, and it also does well in the arena, until you encounter a siege golem, of course. Let me know if you liked the update, I hope it helped you out. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. See you all soon, bye bye.